Good afternoon. It's a treat to follow Alan Davidson, who truly is doing God's work and trying to help coordinate this industry and coordinate everything that we do. My apologies if I'm limping around. I had knee surgery on Wednesday, and I got to keep it moving. So sorry if I'm doing nervous walking or leaning on the podium. We have an opportunity today to talk about global competitiveness. And one of the benefits of being in the back in the green room is you get to touch base with your colleagues about what they're going to talk about. And you pretty quickly realize that all of us are in some ways saying the same thing about US competitiveness with China. And so in an attempt to get us some time back, I'm actually going to go very quickly through the first portion of my speech because Meredith and Slayton already talked about the US falling behind China. Secretary Davidson talked about it, and I happen to know that Yossi Cohen from Ericsson is going to follow me up on stage and provide a whole bunch more detail. So I'm going to go quickly through this first piece, which is a bit of context that I think everybody in the room is relatively comfortable with. The first is massive increases in demand for data, for what it is that we do. It is always a good thing to have people wanting more and more of your product. My product is connecting people, and people want to be more and more connected, and that's a great thing. The challenge is, how do you support it? And at its most basic, the way that you support huge increases in data is with more spectrum and with more infrastructure, and not so that I avoid being overly repetitive with both previous and past speakers who come after me. We are behind China in both. So we are behind China in both the number of base stations, so in the density of our grid, we are behind. And simply because of the density of our grid, Chinese consumers have access to 70% more wireless capacity than people do in the US. And as they clear more mid-band spectrum, and you compare the mid-band spectrum that China has identified versus the mid-band spectrum that the US has identified, that gap will grow to 160%. And so we have a significant challenge in front of us. How do we address this challenge? I see three key pillars that we need to tackle, and I think you're going to hear a lot more about each of these pillars from speakers today. We need more spectrum, specifically more licensed full power spectrum. In order to do that, we need to be restoring auction authority for the FCC, although I will say ideally we should be restoring it with specific bands in mind. I'll go to the right-hand side of the graph. We should ideally have an aligned approach to innovation, and I think NTIA and Alan Davidson are leading the way on that. Several different funds specifically designed to tackling innovation and to finding a way to align our country's innovation when it comes to telco. And in the middle is what I'd like to spend a little bit more time on, and I'm going to go deeper on one of these items, which is we need to put more money behind infrastructure. I run US Cellular. US Cellular, we're the fourth largest wireless company in the US. We're a little bit smaller than the top three, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, but we focus mostly on rural America. And in rural America, a lot of times it is uneconomical to connect and to put in infrastructure without support. And so the good news is that there's a variety of different programs in place. Think BEAD, think various state programs, think the 5G fund. There are various programs in place to put more dollars behind rural America and to put more dollars behind investing in these areas. The challenge, and this is where I'd like to go a little bit deeper, is that these efforts are not coordinated. We're not coordinating the different government programs that are being put in place, and consequently, private industry is going to have a hard time putting capital to work to actually solve this problem. And I'd like to go deep on one specific part of the US and give you a very specific case example. And I'm going to start in Iowa, and I'm going to specifically start in Monona County, Iowa. Raise your hand if you've ever been to Monona County, Iowa. Seriously. Wow, that's amazing. We have one person, we have a couple people in the audience. Close your eyes and imagine Iowa. That is Monona County, Iowa. What I'm showing you here is existing 5G coverage in Monona County, Iowa. And the lighter the hexagon, the less coverage there is. There are parts of Monona County that are completely uncovered. There are some that have somewhat decent coverage, but generally, Monona County is a significantly uncovered area when it comes to 5G. And there's a reason for that. Right? It's heavily rural, not a lot of population density. It's very expensive to cover all of Monona County because it's a pretty big geography. And so it's a big geography with really light population density, which makes it tough for carriers like myself or any of my competitors to go connect in a cost-effective way. So today, on average, if I average the coverage that I have, as well as the coverage that my competitors have, there's about 6 towers that each of us has covering Monona County, providing wireless service to the homes and the businesses of Monona County. If we were to cover all of Monona County, 100% of the geography, with 5G, you would need about 100 towers. And to put dollars behind that, to put a tower in rural America, it costs anywhere between $650,000 to $1 million. And that's both the cost of the tower itself, the iron, the steel, erecting that tower, putting radios on it. But a not insignificant investment also comes with providing the backhaul to that tower, so running fiber to it. In the long run, if we're going to provide 5G, or particularly if you're going to provide future iterations of 5G or 6G, you're going to need to have fiber run to your tower. And running fiber to those towers and running the infrastructure to those towers, think roads and so on, is a really expensive endeavor. And so at between $650K and $1 million per tower, if you were to blanket Monona County with 5G, you're talking $100 million. And I don't need to provide you with graphic descriptions of Monona County to tell you that $100 million is not worth spending when it comes to trying to provide blanket coverage. So we have to find a way to bring this cost down if we're going to connect Monona, but also if we're going to provide ubiquitous 5G coverage to rural America. And I'll end my conversation with why that's important. So the first thing that you can do is you can say, okay, well, we don't need to have 100% geographic coverage. Let's focus on where people work, live, play, and importantly, drive. And the reason I'm including drive is because if you're going to drive an autonomous car in Monona County, or if you're going to fly a drone in Monona County, you can't simply cover work, live, and play. You also have to cover the routes through Monona County. And so what you're seeing here is 75% of geographic coverage, 95% of population coverage. So now we've taken 100 towers and we've been able to take it down to about 30 towers. But those towers are still going to be expensive. The reason they're expensive, we have to run fiber, right? We have to run roads, we have to have that backhaul available, and so you're probably skewing towards the $1 million side of the equation when it comes to those towers, and so you're still talking $25 to $30 million. Now we can start to think, though, about how we can better apply government programs. So now I'm giving you a different map. Some of you may be aware of this map. This is the maps that are used to put out BEAD funding. So the dots on the map are and underserved locations in Monona County. These are homes or businesses that have either no broadband or have very low speed broadband and would qualify for the BEAD program. And so every dot that you see on here will need to be covered by BEAD in order for Iowa, in order for Monona County to cover 100% of their locations. And I have been advocating for a long time, for those of you that have heard me, about fixed wireless and about how fixed wireless should be a part of the BEAD program. But I also know that a lot of BEAD is going to go to fiber. So the first step that we did here is we said, where would fiber routes be? If we were just to imagine, if we were the Monona County broadband planner, where would we put fiber? And what you can see here is the blue lines about where I would use BEAD dollars if I was applying them in Monona County. So now all of a sudden I have fiber and I have fiber density in a lot of places where it wasn't before. But still not all those homes are covered. So the second thing that we should be doing is we should be using part of the BEAD dollars to put in fixed wireless. So what I've done is I've popped in where I would put towers, and the towers that would then connect the homes and the businesses in those areas with fixed wireless. But the thing is that when I put those towers in place, we're not just putting fixed wireless radios on those towers. Right? Those same towers are also going to have 5G. They're going to provide mobile 5G coverage for the area where they are. So now, by using BEAD, I've done two things. One, I've put in a dense fiber grid throughout Monona County. And the second thing is I've helped fund put in new towers, and I've brought the load down on what it takes to actually provide ubiquitous 5G across Monona County. And so now that I've put that in place, all I need in order to provide that same coverage, right, that same 95% of POPs, 75% of geographies, now I only need 10 towers. And the reason that I can now have those towers in cheaper is because we have fiber density. So now it's a lot cheaper for me to connect those towers with fiber because I can leverage the investments that were made with BEAD. And so by being smart about the way that we sequence the use of our government programs and the way that government works with industry, we can take $100 million, which would be the notional concept of let's blanket Monona County with 5G, and we're able to take it down to $6 to $8 million on what would actually need to be spent if you can be smart about your architecture and smart about the way you use your programs. And so why does this matter? Well, having 5G in place and having ubiquitous mobile broadband in place doesn't just support watching mobile video or watching TikTok, or I guess I probably shouldn't use TikTok as the example right now, YouTube. It also supports a whole bunch of new technologies. The example I'll use is LTE. We in the mobile industry built LTE with a very specific use case in mind, and that was mobile video. The mobile video experience on 3G wasn't great. We knew our consumers wanted access to better mobile video, and so we put in 4G networks and 4G LTE networks. What we didn't realize is we were also enabling Uber. Right? Uber doesn't work properly on a 3G network. I mean, it'll work, but it's a terrible experience. What we're enabling in Monona County is not just ubiquitous 5G so people can watch YouTube. We're also enabling intelligent farming, soil sensors, being able to better manage crop yields. We actually recently sold a product to a customer in Monona County. It's a storage facility, and they were encouraging a pretty significant amount of cost in terms of managing access in and out and managing video access to their storage facility. We've put in 5G cameras. They now can track, automatically monitor license plates coming in and out of the facility, brings their security cost way down. The third thing that this helps us do, right, it helps us drive mobile video, it helps us drive new innovations. It will help us bridge that global competitiveness gap. Connecting Monona County is part of having ubiquitous autonomous cars. It's part of having ubiquitous AR/VR. It's part of having ubiquitous AI. And it's difficult, and it's challenging, and it's not as sexy to talk about Monona County as it is to talk about Manhattan or as it is to talk about DC. But it's going to be critical if we're going to bridge this global competitiveness gap. And the final reason we should be doing this is much more personal. We recently put in we worked with the state of North Carolina to put in a fixed wireless program in Northampton County. They helped subsidize a lot of our fixed wireless devices. We chipped in, North Carolina chipped in. We brought a bunch of fixed wireless to Northampton County, which is an area in the very, very north of the state, really, really rural. Customers were completely unconnected. And my favorite story from this has nothing to do with global competitiveness with China. It has nothing to do with sexy 5G use cases. It has to do with a customer that I talked to, and she said, "I'm so glad that you guys did this because now my grandchildren will finally come and visit," which is pretty cool. So I think there's 100 different reasons for us to be putting these investments in place around spectrum, around infrastructure, around a lot of the other technologies that you're going to hear from other speakers. It has to be well coordinated. And if we do, we can support not just US-China competitiveness, but also grandma seeing her grandkids. Cheers, everybody. Thanks.